COVID-19 has been a time of exile for us and all of our brothers and sisters, a time when we've been separated from our spiritual homes. And yet the psalmist here talks about a time when God's people were restored from Babylon. You see, Babylon was a time of weeping, but it was also a time where they thought and talked and dreamed about coming home, coming back. And they were weeping and asking, how can we sing the songs of Zion in Babylon? And they thought and they anticipated about if God would bring them back. But that would change in a moment when the if became when. If God would bring us back, one day turned to when God would bring us back. And the people of God began to dream about returning home, when they could be the people of God together again. And their dreaming turned into singing, a time to sing a new song of praise because God was bringing them home. And this new song would not just be for God's people, but this new song would also be a testimony to those who were listening around God's people. It says here that other people were saying, "See what great things God has done for you. The Lord has done great things for them." You see, it was a testimony to the world that God's people were not dead, that God's people were not forever in exile, but He was bringing them back home, and He was working this miracle for them to bring them back to their home of worship. It was a testimony for them. It was such a miracle that the psalmist here talks about the Negeb. And if you know anything about the Negeb, you know that it is a dry and arid place, a place where there's no water. And yet, once a year, almost like a miracle from God, rains would come down, and the dry and arid land would suddenly turn into a river. It was a miracle, like the dry Negeb rushing with water. You see, the people of God saw God doing this great thing, and it was like a miracle in a dry and arid land. It was a testimony for His people, and from exile, they were coming into dreaming, and from dreaming, they were coming into singing, and that singing would bring them home. And so, church, now is our when. We've gone from if to when. Now is our time to return so that those around us will say to us, what great things the Lord has done for you. And so return and worship, return and build. It is time.